What is up, everyone? Sorry, by the way, sorry I'm late. Had to wrap up some work. Wanted to go live at 5 o'clock, but busy day at work, at the job. And happy Monday to everyone. I want to do a quick BRAP rant of sorts, because I haven't done one in quite some time, I feel like. But it was kind of like a last minute type thing. Hamp might join me, or the artist formerly known as Game Logic. He might be joining me here in a little bit. But do want to talk about the GTA leak, GTA 6 leak. Have some updates on that. And then news about PlayStation VR 2. I want to talk about some of the reaction that I saw to this report of PSVR 2. And yeah, we'll get into that here. Let's kick off the show officially. All right, everyone, welcome back to BRAP. Quick BRAP rant. I'm not going to speak. Well, it's not going to be a long BRAP rant. Let's just say that. Big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Thank you so much. I know this was kind of last minute. Not a lot of warning. Hopefully, you got the notifications from the YouTube. Probably not, though, because with Google. Yeah, well, anyhow. All right. So here's the deal. So we're going to talk a little bit about PlayStation VR 2. We have some news regarding PlayStation VR 2, actually. And I'm going to talk about really some of the. Well, let's get to the news first. I'm going to talk about the news first. And here we are. PlayStation VR 2 isn't compatible with PlayStation VR games, Sony says. So this actually came about as a result of a news article, or say news article, a podcast where I think it was a Sony. Oh my goodness! It was a representative from Sony that was on a podcast. It was senior vice president of platform experience at PlayStation, is Hideki Nishino, and he said this in an interview with the official PlayStation podcast, this was published this past Friday. So let me actually, you know what? Let me do something here real quick. Let me see here. Nope. Let me zoom in here. All right, yeah, I just want to zoom in and kind of just blow this up here for everyone. What's up, Hustle? Oh my God, Hustle and the great Hustle and Motivate. It's in the live chat, man. What's going on, Hustle, man? Great to see you, sir. We get Hustle. We got to do a wrestling podcast because there's a lot to talk about as it relates to AEW. AEW's all in the news, good or bad. They're in the news. So great to see you, Hustle. All right, so here we go. So here's the article. It's up here. PSVR 2 is compatible with PlayStation VR, and this again is from a. It's actually from the Hideki Nishino, who's a senior vice president of platform experience at PlayStation. All right, so he was on the official PlayStation podcast, and he said PSVR 2's much more advanced features compared to PSVR, such as inside-out tracking, eye tracking, 4K HDR support, and a new controller with haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. This means developing games for PSVR 2 requires a whole different approach than the original PSVR. So again, he confirms that PSVR 2 won't be able to play games with the original PlayStation VR. Now, it sounds like that. So a couple things. So let me scroll back up here. By the way, I love the design of the PSVR 2 headset. It's a very sleek looking device. It's appealing to the eye. I like it. It's nice. So a couple things. This is something that was kind of the cat was kind of out of the bag with this. If you've been paying attention to some of the news that was kind of drip feeding out about PlayStation VR 2 backwards compatibility, there had been a lot of conversation. Let's say rumors, I guess, if you want to call it that that the device was not going to be backwards compatible with the PlayStation VR. And in fact, actually, you can actually still use your PlayStation VR device with the PlayStation 5. So it's if you still want to play those games, there's that workaround. You'll have to hook it up to the PlayStation 5. There is a dongle that you will need to convert to connect USB-C to the PlayStation 5. Sony, I don't know if they're still doing it, but Sony was actually providing free upgrades of the dongle to PlayStation VR owners. They were shipping it no cost to them, so that way they could still enjoy their PlayStation VR with their new PlayStation 5 game consoles. Um, so a couple things. One, I guess the reaction on Twitter, and look, I'm trying to be, I guess, nice about this. But a lot of I think the reactions coming from just not knowing, right? Just not having that knowledge of software development or development. Um, and I think that that's kind of the issue that I've been seeing on Twitter a lot, that there's people who are commenting that have never developed a game in their life, never written a line of code, don't understand maybe the potential challenges that go into um, maybe some kind of uh, backwards compatibility per se. Um, uh, so there was some commentary, and I want to say Agent Deli, who is a developer, currently works for Microsoft, but had worked at Ubisoft previously. He had, I think, expanded upon that a little bit. Um, Dustin can fly from Sacred Symbols actually made some commentary about that too, about different um, the different hardware that's involved in the PlayStation VR versus the PlayStation VR 2. The eye tracking, things like that. So it doesn't seem like it's essentially, um, you know, um, something that's easy to do. Bill Stillwell, who used to work for Facebook or Oculus, I should say, or Meta Oculus, Bill Stillwell actually commented on that, saying that there could be some challenges in developing or doing some kind of um, allowing PlayStation VR games to play on PlayStation VR 2. He's saying that he didn't say it was impossible, but he's saying, VR headsets, developing for those headsets are a beast within itself. Um, and not that it can't happen, but maybe it doesn't even make sense for them to do it. And so that goes back to the uh, the fact that some of the reaction that I was seeing as it relates to this announcement. And I'm gonna see if I can pull up that Bill Stillwell quote here, because I thought it was insightful. I may not be able to grab it because it was. Let me see something here real quick. All right, let me pull this up here. See if I can pull this up. Yeah, I don't see it here. All right, so I was trying to pull up this quote because I thought it was insightful by Bill Stillwell. I just tried to do a search under his tweet, but I don't see it here. Let's see here. PSVR 2. Let me see something here. Nope, I don't see it. Okay. Anyhow, so PlayStation. Okay, so he's saying, it also may not make sense to dedicate those resources in terms of ROI, right, return on investment, and that could be it. I mean, look, sometimes, I wish, I was hoping Game Logic could join us, because he kind of he had some interesting commentary on this, as given his expertise in software development. Managing projects that, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. You just make choices that, um, because it just doesn't make sense to maybe do something, um, in that it's just better to allocate resources and those things that you're trying to do. And I'm paraphrasing what he said here. Um, so this is like, so it could be some of that. I guess what I I guess my cautionary tale to all this is like I think people should just pump their brakes a little bit instead of like getting emotionally charged. Some of the emotion that I saw behind this. Oh my God, this is anti-consumer. Sony's missing the ball again. This is terrible. Well, you should be allowed to play games. What about all the games I bought? Um, there's still an option to play your PlayStation VR games. You can do that. Like you can still play your PlayStation VR games using your existing PlayStation headset on a PlayStation 5. So there's that. But clearly Sony feels it's just better for them to focus on a new hardware line, the PlayStation VR 2, and focus on creating content that really caters to that device and highlights that device. Remember, at the end of the day, people aren't a lot of people aren't buying new hardware necessarily to play old content. Like and I'm not saying that having backwards compatibility isn't a good thing. It's a great thing. It's a nice added value. It's a nice value add, but most people aren't buying new hardware to to um to play old games. If you have access to your library to play older games, that's great. If you can play at a higher fidelity, that's great. But let's face it, most people going out and buying that $500 shiny new piece of plastic, they want to see what that plastic can do. You don't buy a Ferrari to go 30 miles an hour on the highway, if you know what I mean. So it could be, it could have been a decision where, from a business perspective, Sony just didn't feel like it made sense to, you know, and we don't know how challenging sometimes companies just don't feel like it just makes sense to and I'm sorry, like a little distracted here because I'm reading the live chat at the same time. Um some of these companies just don't feel like it just makes sense for them to do this kind of stuff. And we don't know. Maybe it's easy. Some of the things that I saw from developers on Twitter seem to point that it wasn't as easy as people might think it is, that it could potentially be done, but there could be some costs associated with that, some maybe resources that maybe Sony doesn't want to allocate to that. They don't feel like it's the best return of investment, and that's fine. But what I don't understand is the emotion of and people just taking to another level. I'm not saying you shouldn't be disappointed or that nobody should be disappointed about not having backwards compatibility if that's something that's important to you as a consumer. That's fair. It's one thing to say, "Oh, you know what? This would have been great if it had backwards compatibility. I could carry all my, existing games that I want to play still. If they could be up-res or somehow to take advantage of PSVR 2, that would have been awesome." Um, but what I saw was, again, people out there selling wolf tickets. People out there getting upset, angrier at Sony, saying they're anti-consumer. Like, those are the kind of reactions that are trivial to me. And I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It's okay to be like, "You know what? Yeah, you know what? This is I would have liked for them to have it." And look, fair enough. As a consumer, if you feel like, you know what, Sony, I'm not going to give you money for a PSVR 2 headset because you're not supporting something I want. Fair enough. Do that as a consumer. Vote with your wallet. Um, but at the same time, I don't understand people yelling from the mountaintop, yelling anti-consumer, saying that this is a PR nightmare. I mean, it's hyperbolic. It's hyperbole. It's hyperbole. And again, if it's something you wanted, and you don't get it, I think it's fair to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I wish Sony would have had backwards compatibility with the PlayStation VR. That would have been a nice value add. I'm bummed out that that's not part of it. That's a fair, level-headed response, but not the nonsense that I saw on Twitter by people saying this was anti-consumer and that somehow this was like, a PR nightmare. No, it's not. I mean, if you if you've been keeping up with the reactions of the PlayStation VR to the hands-on demos that a lot of media sites have been reporting. There's been a couple YouTube videos on the hands-on experience of the PlayStation VR 2. A lot of the media sites have actually said very positive things about the headset, the technology behind the headset. Some of the games they demoed, they say look really good. Resident Evil Village is one of them. And then there's also Horizon Call of the Mountain. So here's some of the games that they're coming out with. No Man's Sky, The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, Resident Evil Village, Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. That's the enhanced edition. That's on Oculus right now. And then Horizon Call of the Mountain. So look, again, I would have liked, and again, I don't own a PlayStation VR headset. Let me add my buddy Hamp here. Hamp, what's up, man?
Not a mucho, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm just I'm ranting on about people basically selling wolf tickets, by the way.
Ow!
Right. Wait, are you a wolf? Like some of this stuff, like I was basically saying, like, I think it's fair to say, hey, you know what, PlayStation VR 2 not having backwards compatibility with PlayStation VR, like, geez, that would have been nice to have. I'm kind of bummed, But what I was talking about was some of the extreme takes. And of course, when I'm talking about the extreme takes, somebody in the live chat says BRAP is here to damage control for Sony as usual. No, I'm not. It's not damage controlling. It's just highlighting maybe the stupidity that I'm seeing. And by the way, Hamp, I took the weekend off from social media, so I'm coming back like,
Fired up. Fired up.
No, seriously, I'm fired up. I saw my buddy Bill Clinton on CNN talking. Bill got me a little riled up.
Yeah, man, as it should be. Look, people. I mean, if you're going to use the term damage control, kind of like, as I always say, I don't know what's going on with this. Is there some kind of like auto? I think there's some kind of auto leveling on this site. Let me try and figure that out. People. Yeah, echo can.
All right, we lost Hamp. Let's see here. I think Hamp will probably come back. I think. Hold on a sec here. Oh, there he is. All right, Hamp, you're back.
Yeah. Maybe it took me offline when I went to make some adjustments because I stopped. The website's trying to give me help, and I don't need automated help. I guess my perspective is, in all things, I personally prefer to quantify things. I understand that that's not everyone's perspective, and so if that aggravates you, I empathize, but I don't sympathize. When you talk about damage control, I think what I look at is, okay, if it's damage controlling, what's really the impact, which I think is the point of our levity in this outlook. And about like 5 million people or so bought PSVR 1s, maybe a skosh more, out of an install base that, the estimate I use in my head is about 140 million people between PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 these days. And so that's 3.6% of the customer base that may or may not be impacted. 3.6% is not enough, in my mind, to warrant the expenditure of level of effort required to make those games, forward compatible with the PSVR 2 or backwards compatible, depending on the way that you look at it. And the PSVR 1 is compatible with the PlayStation 5, and so that gives you a viable workaround to access those games. What it doesn't do for you is, if your notion of the value prospect of the PSVR 2 was access to both the library of the new games and the old games, then that's a down check, and that can be utilized in your decision to buy it or not.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. By the way, like if that's something that you feel like, and I said this before you joined the show, I said, hey, if that's kind of a if that's a deal killer for you, then that's fine to say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to buy it. That's perfectly fair. But when people say damage control, because I'm talking about, the hyperbolic takes, the stuff of, anti-consumer PR nightmare. Meanwhile, I'm thinking PR nightmare or PlayStation VR 2. Like, have you been under a rock? Have you seen what the media has been saying about the PlayStation VR 2, headset and everything, and the demos that they've had hands-on? Like, it's been pretty positive. In fact, I don't think I've seen anyone say that's demoed it like, oh my God, I can't believe it doesn't have backwards compatibility. This is terrible.
I mean, here's my thing: the 5 million people who purchased a PSVR 1, I'm all ears to listen to their anti-consumer perspective or whatever it may be about backwards compatibility. But the people that I see causing a row on Twitter and more so inciting others to riot are not people who bought the PSVR 1. And I don't believe that they had intentions of buying the PSVR 2 because they haven't said peep about it until this news hit about the lack of backwards compatibility.
Well, they're just out there selling wolf tickets, man.
Yep. Fiddler on the Roof. Pied Piper.
Exactly. It's time to drain the swamp, sir. No, it's funny.
We will make gaming great again.
We will make gaming great again. Because we stand up for the real gamers. No, I mean, like, I think there's something to be said there because I think a lot of the howling, and I did see one person howling pretty loudly, but that actually owns a PlayStation VR, and he went super hyperbolic on it, very emotionally charged. I'm like, dude, just pump the brakes. It's not the fucking end of the world. Everybody just calm down.
Yeah, and even still, right? I mean, like, I get a consumer like that, right? And a consumer like that was me when I got my 4th Red Ring of Death on the Xbox 360, right? And I got fed up and I'd had enough, right? And I took that sucker out of the shipping box, and I didn't.
But that's more impactful than, like, having.
True. I guess I will grant the latitude. I will grant wide latitude to counsel, right? I mean, look.
No, I mean, but it is. But I'm saying this person's an influencer. He's like, oh, this is a PR nightmare. This is terrible. More bad Sony, more Jim Ryan dance moves. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. If he articulated that and said, you know what, this is unfortunate. I bought so many PSVR games. I'm so committed to the ecosystem. This is I wish they would have included this, I'm probably not going to buy it. But to go off the deep end and, and to start like, using those buzzwords, those console war buzzwords, like, that's what I'm addressing with some of that, with this. Oh, I won't say who it was, but this one particular person. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Hamp. Now we lose Hamp. You there? Uh-oh, we may have lost Hamp. All right, Hamp, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. I've been having an ecosystem problem logging into because I have multi-factor authentication turned on my Google accounts, and so when I'm trying to sign into YouTube, and for whatever reason now the access thing doesn't pop on my iPhone. It pops on only my Android phones, which was not the case a couple of weeks ago. So I stepped away from the mic momentarily. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, look, I guess my perspective is when you talk about how a thing impacts you directly as a user and as a consumer, full on, I can't tell you how you feel, right?
That's fair. No, absolutely.
But
I don't disagree with that.
But the problem, one of the key problems that's going on now is we have people who myopically view and incorrectly assess the marketplace, the consumer base, as if they all think like they do, right? And it happens on both PlayStation side and Microsoft side, right? The Xbox viewpoint that, I run a business and I'm going to tell you that once a game goes exclusive to Game Pass, or once a game comes to Game Pass and is sold on PlayStation for $70, everybody's going to buy it, right? Everybody's going to consume it from Game Pass because nobody would go pay $70 for it, right, on another platform. And that's not true. It's absolutely not true when you talk about it in absolutes, right? There are different consumer demographics and people who live in different pools and people who behave differently. And by the same token, somebody who looks at PSVR 1, PSVR 2 and rages and says that, well, everybody else feels the way that I do, and therefore it's a PR nightmare, and therefore, everybody's going to rage. I'm like, no, I don't think that's the case. I think there are 5 million people who are impacted, and I think some percentage of them are going to be really upset. Some percentage of them aren't going to care. But that's the problem with some of the perspectives and takes, I think, on the gaming market and the consumer base.
No, I don't disagree. I think that's a fair assessment that some people are going to be like, impacted or, feel a certain way about it. And others are going to be like, hey, you know what? I want the shiny new toy and I want the shiny new games that come with that toy.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. I mean, but the mental gymnastics and all this over the top stuff is kind of just it's why we're going to drain the swamp. So, let's see here. There's something I wanted to address. Not to pick on you, Keop 901. It says perhaps sometimes you have to let these companies, as we consume, shouldn't just accept. I think he's basically saying that we shouldn't accept these things, and I'm like, well, eh, I mean, I'm interested in PSVR 2 because of these new games and the new technology. Yeah, I'm accepting the fact that PlayStation. I mean, like to me, okay, it's not so much acceptance as it to me. It's just like what you just explained, Hamp. It doesn't impact me. There's no like I don't see this as impacting me in a negative way.
Right, and I think it depends on the take on this whole notion of anti-consumer, right? Let's break that apart a little bit. So yeah, full on, right? Look, life is hard. Life is incredibly difficult.
Yes, it is.
It has been incredibly difficult, more difficult, the last 2 to 3 years, right? We've had a pandemic.
Yep.
I, who would claim that I've never suffered from any kind of, I don't know, whatever, disappointment or bad feelings or whatever, I doom scrolled for 2 years, right? And in my own motivations, right, and going out and accomplishing things, suffered from doom scrolling. And my exposure to everybody's, negative outlook. Look, life has been tough, and I believe that energy is finite, and I don't have, unbounded energy. I'm not going to expend it getting angry over something that A, doesn't warrant me getting angry about, doesn't cross my threshold of relevance, and doesn't impact me, right? So that's one, right? Then this notion of anti-consumer, I guess my perspective, and again, if you have a definition and a rubric and a yardstick and a set of goalposts for this, it's going to determine how you feel. My feeling on anti-consumer is there's nothing anti-consumer when you haven't bought into a thing, right? To me, it can't possibly be defined as anti-consumer when I haven't paid any money. The only thing that's anti-consumer is when I pay and I'm already in the pool, and then you change the conditions of the deal, right? Or render post-delivery service in a way that's unfavorable to me, right? I might say to Amazon, right? I spend a crap ton of money on Amazon. And I sometimes have discussion with Amazon where something's not necessarily anti-consumer, but I remind them how much money I spend, all right, on Amazon. And I make sure that they're clear that I want to be satisfied, or I'll start changing my buying habits, right? That is an area where maybe I can feel kind of anti-consumer because there is an ongoing relationship between Amazon and I, right? It's not a single point of sale relationship. In games, you typically have a single point of sale relationship. I don't know that Sony or Microsoft look at you. It doesn't matter. I don't know that it matters to them that you've bought 5 consoles. And this is a consumer electronics perspective. I think the same thing is true of whoever you've bought washing machines from, right? Or televisions from. I don't know that LG is going to fall off the log because you say, I've bought 5 LG televisions and now I'm dissatisfied, right? And I'm going to take my business elsewhere and go buy a Sony TV. That market just kind of doesn't act like that. You can act like that when you have a membership to the country club. You can act like that when you have a membership to even Costco or Sam's. You can act like that when you have an ongoing recurring purchase relationship directly, right, with a business. But when you consume things from Sony, and they're not always directly from Sony, right? Some of them are from GameStop, some of them are from Target, some of them are from Best Buy. I don't know that the tethers to your relationship with that supplier are the same. And so therefore, I don't look at things that Microsoft or Sony are doing as anti-consumer, particularly when I have a lot of other options, and those other options, they're not on as wide a slide rule, right? It's a big impact if I decide to change my buying behaviors, and disengage my relationship with Amazon, right? It's a big deal, even back in the day, when I was bothered with Google and the way that they were not supporting interfaces with Windows Phone, right? And I broke my relationship with Google, right? That was a much bigger thing. And so to me, I guess I look at it as a matter of scale and a matter of customer. and a matter of kind of what the import is of you as a single buyer, right, from a given company. I'm not a very big fly in the ointment, right, for Amazon as a single consumer, but I do procure a lot of things through that single supply chain, right? Same thing for, for instance, Verizon, right? Because I'm the primary supplier of cell phones to like a large part of my family, first party and second party and thrice removed, right? I'm a big customer, right, for Verizon, essentially the equivalent of a small business plan, right? So to me, that gives me a certain crowbar, right, when I go into those conversations. And same thing it was with, I got Google to make exceptions for me, right, for certain things.
You certainly have a lot of leverage there with Verizon. I mean,
yeah, it's not a great amount, but it's not zero, something, right?
Yeah,
so yeah. So I just think that relationship's different, right, with gaming companies, and so the bravado of the anti-consumer theme and tirade, I just don't feel like that bucket carries a lot of water. Some people feel it does, but I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either. Like, I just want to bring up Viper XT in the live chat says, so when you already bought, let me just pull this up here. Viper XT says, so when you've already bought a console with price expectations on games and then they raise the prices, that's anti-consumer.
I mean, that's what some people say it is.
Yeah, I've heard that argument, but we knew what the game prices were going to be before the consoles came out.
Yeah, and it's tough to be because there are other vectors of purchase, right?
Well,
well, that's
what I was going to say. To your point, I mean, people saying the anti-consumer thing about $70 games. And by the way, I look, I'll be frank, man, and I'm done being polite about this. I think for some people there's probably some legitimacy there, but I think for a lot of people it's just console wars nonsense, the $70 thing, because the only time that I see the $70 conversation happening is when it's specifically around Sony first party games or Sony period.
Correct. It's not for Ubisoft games, which are also $70 now. It's not about 2K, which are also $70, and it's not about EA games, which are also $70.
Yeah, it's not about Activision games, which are $70. I mean, like, Sony was the third major publisher to announce $70 games. They in fact did not set the market. It was actually Activision and then 2K, and now Ubisoft is joining the ranks. And so it's with the $70 thing. Like, I don't begrudge anyone who doesn't want to pay $70 for a game. That's your prerogative, fine. But at the same time, to say it's anti-consumer is I don't think that's I think that
is a little hyperbolic.
Yeah. Because you have options. You have options. You don't have to buy a $70 game. You can buy that $70 game when it goes on sale. And that's the other thing that no one talks about, by the way. No one talks about, like, they act like $70 is set in stone. No, those games go on sale. They go on sale.
Yeah, and what I'm not a huge fan of is the duplicity, right? I'm not a huge fan of the same exact people who say, the fact that the games go on sale isn't an excuse or an off-ramp. But those very same people will say, don't say Game Pass is $15. You can actually just buy it for $1 and nobody's paying $15 a month. Right. Again, I don't. Not true. Is absolutely not the case because
my dollar deal ran up.
Yeah, and convenience outweigh. Look, I'm going to search for a deal, but I'm not going to search for a deal. Look, my commute is 2 hours in and 2 hours back. I'm not expending time searching for a deal when the price sensitivity within a certain span is less valuable to me than my own convenience or my own time or leisure time. But and the other thing is, look. My perspective is I think it's full on okay for people to have a negative perspective on on game prices being $70. It's full on okay for them to think that that's bad, right? I give credit to Microsoft for smart delivery. I said it before this generation even launched. I said, look, smart delivery is going to have the social impact of a new clothing style, right? Or Jordans, or new acceptable trends in fashion, right? The people are going to look on smart delivery as favorable. And anybody who is not doing something that's the equivalent of smart delivery is going to, may not be seen as an outright negative, but it's going to cast a flashlight on them, right? Here's somebody doing a thing which is clearly feasible and possible, and now you're going to be a party who chooses not to do that. And so that weight of opinion, I'm fully on board with, and I recognize, and I acknowledge, and I feel like is credible. Again, when people then do the triple Lindy off the 3 diving boards, right, and say, it's anti-consumer and evil Sony and this whole thing.
Lindy. Oh my God.
And this whole thing that's going around, like with the ABK acquisition, where there's this effort to, quantify the ethicalness or ethicality. I'm not even sure what the right word is of Microsoft being greater than it is of Sony, or that we're gonna raise up and hero worship Sony and vilify. I just think all of that is foolishness. These are corporate organizations. They're not human beings. I don't think it's applicable to ascribe to them some rubric of ethics or morality. There are laws and there are government regulations, and their singular requirement is to be compliant and operate within those. And then at a stratification less than that, there's the free market economy, right? And as we always say, sometimes we feel like a broken record, I'm sure. The choice, the market votes to indicate its approval of whether something's acceptable or not. And even the person in the chat who said, well, we shouldn't just accept it. It's, who cares who's accepting it by vocality or not? No one cares, and the companies don't care. The companies are looking at the financial telemetry, and the financial telemetry is either upside or downside, right? You can make a third category and call it break even, right? And that's the only thing that matters to them. I think a lot of people run around convincing themselves that, oh, well, our voice on Twitter has a capability to render an impact. In certain kind of weird choices, and my view of it is only by the case where the company gives you that power. That is not power that is inherent in your hands. That is only in the case where the company makes their own choice to listen to you. And I firmly believe that Twitter is sometimes used as a barometer. A lot of times, executive leadership isn't sure about something, and they feel use Twitter as a litmus test, right? But that doesn't mean that empowerment is universal. It certainly doesn't mean that it takes hold every case. Look, there are, in a lot of environments, like I look at things, I personally act as, what I refer to as a benevolent dictator, right? Don't get confused that, your ability to provide input and your ability to be listened to it necessarily gives you a right? But it's still not a democracy. At the end of the day, somebody still makes a decision. And again, I think a lot of times we get the benevolent dictatorship regime of the supplier-consumer relationship confused in terms of our interaction with them on social media versus our activities and our behavior on the free market. Our activities and our behavior on the free market is what empowers us. I don't think that our voices on Twitter empower us much more than the incremental percentage that we are as far as being representative of the market.
That's actually a great point, because I've always said, like, for me, it's like I've never understood the mental gymnastics and all the hyperbole and that we see around gaming. Especially like you brought up the CMA stuff. That's so trivial to me. People are like, this CMA's on the take. They're biased towards Sony. It's just like, who cares? Like, first of all, they're not. But who cares? Like why is there so much effort put into this? Like, it doesn't have any direct impact on you or me. It's just, or consumers in general, what the CMA is going to do, right? Even if they rule against Microsoft, you can still buy COD. If they rule, if the deal goes through, for what we understand, it's still going to be on the PlayStation platform. You'll still be able to buy it there. I just, like, if you didn't know any better, it would almost seem like it's almost like people believe they don't have choices, and they do have a choice. You can either buy or don't buy.
Well, and somewhat, to represent the flip side of that too, right? It's people think that they have choices, but they think that the choice is to rage about it on social media, and that affects change. And so, just to clear up some of the confusion too, right? Because I think this gets twisted often. I'm not here. I don't think either one of us is here saying don't complain. I don't think either one of us is sitting here saying just accept it and roll over.
No.
But I think the understanding, right, and the empathy that there needs to be in the community that I used to consider myself part of is consider the fact that not everyone thinks the same way that you do. Consider the fact that not everyone takes each of these things as having the impact that you think it does. And then the desire that, well, the people that I want to have a conversation with are the ones that also reality check themselves and understand that them raging about it on social media doesn't necessarily move the needle. Again, you can rage about it to your friends. We all rage about stuff when we're sitting around the water cooler, right? When we're in the truck, right? Hanging out on the weekend, when we're at the barbecue. Right. Look, we all rage. Every organization that I've been a part of, there's been some little group of us who, would grab a drink and solve the whole organization's problems, right? And that's fine. No, I think it's the ones that, to me, voice that opinion as if they are on some, religious pilgrimage. Taking up the sword and feel not only that they're going to move the needle, that even I have some accommodation for, but what really used to aggravate me is the ones who not only take up the sword, but then get pissed and angry and vilify you for not concurrently taking up the sword. And that's where I bounced, because that's where I said, look, I'm not going to get angry about a thing because you're angry about a thing, and I'm not going to be talked to as if you feel like I'm obligated to get angry about a thing because you're angry about a thing. I'm not in your same situation, right? What's going on that bothers you doesn't bother me. I don't have time to get angry over a $50 US dollar price increase for PlayStation 5s in a geographic region that I don't even live in. Particularly when that price increase isn't even $50 US dollars. It's a 50, it's in some cases, it's, $30, right? My lens of what I look through is different than yours, and I accommodate your view, but for some reason we've slid to a point where people aren't accommodating of other views. It's, everybody's got to have the same view, or else somehow you're not part of us. And so,
no,
I just said that was fine.
No, that holds true. I mean, like there's certainly a lot of that going on in the community, where, I'm not invited to certain podcasts anymore that I used to, because I'm quote unquote not Xbox enough. And, people think that I'm a PlayStation fanboy. And it's like, no, I actually, my preferred platform is PC. My preferred console platform right now is PlayStation, but that could change. Microsoft starts delivering some really good content on that console, that Series X, then I will be firing up that Series X. That's kind of how I've always operated. It's, you mentioned something about, that price increase too. It's like, one of the weird things about it that came about that conversation was that I remember I had people saying, I would see it in the live chat on Crossfire, like, "Oh, BRAP, you're damage controlling. How can you be okay with this?" I'm like, and I it's like, look, at the end of the day, the people that are impacted by this, they're going to make a decision the way they do with any other consumer product, whether or not they find enough value in that PlayStation 5 to warrant that $30 or $50 price increase.
Or just world events. I know Erodimus always hates on me and tries to counsel me and coach me when I do my whataboutisms, but I'm going to do some whataboutisms, right? Like, I'm okay. I'm okay with it the same way a lot of you were okay with the war in Ukraine, right? That to me was a flabbergasting event, that the world just kind of sat around for 6 months and did nothing, right? That to me is a thing that I could be outraged about.
Yeah, because that actually has real impact.
Right. And, so, and again, my point is not to say my view is right and your view is wrong. My point is to say, I think that it's okay for us to all have different views about a thing, right? And for both sides to not necessarily be vilified, right? I didn't yell and shout and scream at people for being upset. What I said was, right, first of all, I think my main thing is, provide constructive criticism, right? When we talk about games specifically, right? So I would sometimes say, when people were tearing apart, Starfield, or tearing apart any other game, what I've said is, be respectful of the creative process, right? And give constructive feedback, right? Saying that something looks like crap, nobody can do anything about that. So as a for instance, here's how I would think that the dialogue would go, right? A community manager goes out and harvests, perspectives and feedback from social media, and that person brings them back, right, to the development organization. And hopefully they have applied some rubric of their own and triaged like kind of the stupid stuff out of my view, right? Or else when they bring it back, I get pissed, right? That they're wasting my time bringing me feedback that's worthless. But let's just say that for some reason that comment, right, is still in the pile of stuff that I'm being asked to go through, right, at change review board, right, of all the stuff that we're going to do, to incorporate into the game, on top of all of the other requirements and design elements that we've already decided are going to be incorporated. And I get the comment, that game looks like crap. So here's the problem as a software manager and as a creative leader. What am I supposed to do with that feedback? It's not quantified. I don't know how to fix it. Any attempt to fix it is going to be a WAG, which is an acronym that we use in the biz for wild ass guess, right?
I'm going to start saying that now to my tech managers.
Right? So it's going to be the expenditure of dozens, hundreds, thousands of hours, right? Chasing a unicorn, tilting at a windmill to try and solve a problem that nobody's really certain on how to solve, right? And so I either empower the person giving that feedback to create the rubric, right? But what I'm going to determine from that type of comment is that they failed, and so I'm going to use my own rubric, right? And I'm going to make an assessment on what my team is doing and what they're creating and whether or not it's going to sell, right? Even if commerciality, right, is solely my only yardstick, which often it's not, right? There's a creative yardstick. And, movie makers have been going through this for a long time. Game developers have been going through this for a long time, right? There are some development teams that do great artistic work, right? But the game doesn't perform great commercially, and vice versa. So I don't know. That's just an example of the way some of those factors might be juggled. But yeah, PSVR 2, right? It's bad for a very, 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 very small group of people, and maybe for some people who are looking at buying PSVR 2 who now won't have access to both libraries, a good alternative I would suggest is if they have a PC. Consider getting a Rift S, which I think is still a good headset. That is relatively inexpensive now. There are Windows Mixed Reality headsets, which are incredibly inexpensive, and play all of those same games, at least on PC. Somebody looking at going for a VR headset. Let's say this headset was going to be maybe $400. So $500 plus $400, you're at $1,000 roughly. Maybe that puts you in PC land as a viable alternative. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when this is part of the funny thing about the gaming community. We're having what I would like to think a very level-headed conversation, and you have people who, and this is the emotion I'm talking about. This guy El Ricardo. There we go. Another week. Again, another week, another podcast. If any PlayStation, you guys become the Yes Man podcast. First of all, El Ricardo, whatever your name is, you're not a real gamer. I could just tell by your commentary. So you'll be the first that we drain out of the swamp. This isn't defending PlayStation or Microsoft or whatever the case is. It's like if you don't. This is what I understand about if you love gaming. What I don't understand is the need to champion and try to be destructive, or not destructive, but be angry at another company, or hope for the demise of a company that you quote unquote say, quote unquote, the demise of a company and a hobby that you say you love. Like, why would you want that? That's not to say that when there's something egregious that you shouldn't call those things out. But I mean, what we're commenting on, and you're an example of the emotional outcry and responses that we see. That's what we're talking about. Like, this isn't defending anything. We're actually bringing a level-headed perspective to choices that consumers are going to make as relates to the PlayStation VR 2. I'm sure in your life, Maybe not. Maybe you got upset when Hostess took Twinkies off the market, and you threw a fit, and you boycotted your local supermarket.
Or when Wang stopped making copiers.
Yeah, yeah. You did not bring up Wang. El Ricardo, maybe you're upset when Wang stopped making copiers, but this is you're an example of somebody who claims to love gaming, but you don't love gaming. It's weird. Like, if you love gaming, you wouldn't wish the demise of anything game related company at that. You wouldn't, like, I don't understand, like, I'll never understand the cheering for Microsoft or for Sony, and it's both sides, by the way. No, both sides do this, and I just don't understand that. And that commentary is just the emotion and the weirdness of it all. It's not that serious. Like, it's just not. And so, like, there's other things that are more important to me in my life that actually impact me than whether or not there's going to be backwards compatibility on PlayStation VR now, or VR2. Now, again, like Hamp just said, that doesn't mean that you can't be upset or bummed out about it. I could certainly understand someone who said, "Hey, I have over 30 games on PlayStation VR. I'm disappointed that Sony's not, offering backwards compatibility for those games. I would have liked that." That's a fair commentary, and no one's saying you shouldn't have that commentary. Again, what we're talking about is the stuff that's extra, which is what you're doing in the live chat.
Hey, Brap, you have a super chat, and Boycott Activision saying, if you don't know how to fix crap, you shouldn't be a game dev. And that's a perspective to have. I'm
going to start saying that from now on. That's what's that saying? Anyhow, I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
But the problem Boycott Activision is I think what I was trying to point out, which I think I was hoping people would pick up on the semantics, is the point is that that's not a quantification, right? Somebody tells me to build a jet that can go Mach 2.0, right? Then that's a metric, right? I can say, well, if the jet goes Mach 1.0, then I haven't done my job, right? But as Mooch is off to say, right, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? What you think of as looks like crap isn't the same as another gamer says looks like crap. And another gamer might say, hey, this looks like crap, but it has really great game mechanics or really great gunplay, and so I don't mind that as much.
He said he's being sarcastic.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
All right.
I'll stop. I'll back down.
Yeah, okay. Boycott Activision. Thank you for the clarification. Boycott Activision. You never know these days. You just never know.
Right.
You never know. I mean.
And I mean, my thing is, of what I was saying before, El Ricardo, I mean, I guess my question is, and I'm gonna ask the question, then I'm gonna keep talking because I'm gonna make an assumption until you answer me. El Ricardo, I guess I assume that you're throwing shade at us about that we're defending PlayStation. I'm making my air quote sign because you are favorable to Xbox. So I've written these things several times before, but I'll go through it again, right? Things that Xbox does good and that I love. First of all, my preferred platform is Xbox. If you told me you were shipping me off to a deserted island and told me I could have either an Xbox or a PlayStation, I would want an Xbox. That's because from my perspective.
No. Hey, we need your battle stations over there right now. Because first of all, that answer should never be PlayStation or Xbox. It should be, you know what? I want all four of my PCs.
Sure, I'm assuming that you're not going to give me PC as an option, right? I'm assuming you're making me make the binary choice, right? Which is the way that apparently people discuss games, as if it's a binary choice. So let's go with that, right? Fine. Xbox is my preferred platform. That's because as an engineer and a software developer and somebody who's been around tech the whole time and spends a lot of time on Windows, I just built a Linux box this weekend as well. I like platforms. Platforms matter to me to a certain extent more than applications. And so I'm a platform person. I prefer the Xbox platform. Things that Microsoft does well. I think Game Pass is a positive. I spent time on a podcast this weekend with... It's a rough articulation, so hopefully none of those guys are listening and take offense to this, with a lot of people who had negative takes on Game Pass, right? But I personally feel Game Pass allows a lot of people to afford to play video games who might otherwise not be able to. I think it's a great option on the market. I think it's great that there's a price of entry point that is less egregious than other platforms might require you. I think it's incredible that they're offering an opportunity to get into their ecosystem without demanding the requirement for you to pay a $500 entry fee, right, to get into that consumer market. You can get in at the $300 price point with the Xbox Series S, or you can get in on Game Pass and just play over the cloud. That's not maybe optimal, but those are opportunities for other experiences. You can actually go Xbox All Access, which I'm not going to advise you to do from my financial perspective. That's not a good thing. But I also tell people, don't rent to own, don't pay car payments, pay cash for things, yada, 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 right? That's my own perspective. I'm not going to say that for everyone else. Xbox, to me, does a ton of things great. Here's where I'm going to get even more hate. I'm fine with Halo Infinite, right? And this is the reason why. I don't need a game. I don't need a game. I don't need a game that I have to live in. I have a hard enough problem, skipping around to games as it is. I'm not personally looking for a game that entirely obsesses me and takes over my time. I don't live in Destiny 2. Right, Halo Infinite does what I need from me. We had a BRAP. You're over there saying you're over there, right, mollifying, but we had a great time playing the Yappening, right?
Oh well, no, I'm just.
I know you're just joking.
Yeah, I'm just
right.
yeah.
But my point is, Ricardo, right? So again, my opinion and my perspective is, if you listen to a singular thread of what I say, you can make a binary judgment. And this is another problem with the gaming community. We're far too. We have to be judgmental every day. Somebody's got to be winning or losing. Somebody's got to be validated or invalidated. Right. So if you listen to a single thread of a conversation of mine, sure, you can walk away with that binary assumption. If you listen holistically to all the things that I say in aggregate, right, at least Great Scott on this one podcast show, right, you will hear that I have some positive takes on every single platform. I have some negative takes on every single platform, right? So, I mean, kind of, I take your feedback and I don't consider it particularly credible, but at least that's an effort to answer your question.
And what you just said will fall on deaf ears.
I'm sure it will.
It always happens. I stopped trying. It's like, let me get this $2 super chat from Lord Metroid, who says, here we go. Enjoy the games, not the drama surrounding consoles. That is how it should be, Lord Metroid. I agree 110%. Enjoy the video games.
And I agree with I agree exactly with what you just said, Shadow Spade. Game Pass is a great supplement to gaming, but it's severely hurt by the people who say they love it by acting like it's the only great about gaming and everything must conform to it. Absolutely not. I don't even think that that's what Microsoft is trying to do. But I mentioned on another podcast this week, look, years and years and years and decades right into the future, we're all going to be going to a distributed computing model. Everybody's not going to have a PC on their desk. Everybody's not going to have their own console, because to a certain extent, at some point, that's not going to make any sense, right? It doesn't make sense. I'm sitting right now, right, doing the podcast on a PC with a Ryzen 7 3800X, 64 gigabytes of RAM, right, 2 SSDs in it, plus a 6 terabyte, right, hard drive, and an RTX 3060 Ti, right? I absolutely do not need that processing power for the podcast, and it's one machine that I run in the shop, right? Granted, admittedly, everybody's not in that same setup, but my point is that tons of people have computing devices that they only use a small percentage of. Eventually, way in the future, we're all going to distributed computing, and tons of stuff is going to be delivered over the cloud. And yes, right, tons of things are going to be consumed via subscription services. As I've mentioned before, right, I feel like we often act like Xbox, Microsoft, Game Pass was the first inception of software as a service. Software delivered as a subscription. It's absolutely not. I should say it should say software delivered as a subscription, software procured and consumed as a subscription. It's not. Enterprise did that. And at a certain point, with all of the changes that we eventually see in the gaming space, there comes a point where Enterprise and the rest of the technology world go down a certain pathway to the point where gaming not going down that pathway actually winds up making things more expensive for them, right? And so if you look at Enterprise and you see the way that they're going, and you see that they went down the path of always-on connectivity, you saw that they went down the path of cloud, you saw that they went down the path of DevOps, you saw that they went down the path of, delivering large content updates, you saw that they went down the path of hosted. All these things now are coming into being in gaming, and they didn't get their inception in gaming. It's not some wackadoodle play that Microsoft came up with to compete with Sony. It's at a certain point, it just didn't make technological sense for them to do things a different way.
Yeah, that's a great point. And considering that they've on the enterprise side of things, they've been I mean, clearly very successful there.
I mean, they are the enterprise, right? In
yeah,
ways, like, and
that's
again,
actually a great point. They really are the enterprise.
And, if you're Satya, Phil comes to talk to you, right? You go, Phil, why are you doing things differently than 80% of the rest of my company?
Right? We are a cloud, software as a service based company. Why are you doing this? No, absolutely. I've actually applauded Microsoft for doing this for Game Pass, for what is it, xCloud, because the one thing that I've always appreciated about Microsoft, and we talked about this years and years ago with BRAP, we said that they've always kind of been good at knowing where the puck's going in the gaming space. Like if you go back to Xbox Live, and granted that they weren't the first with online gameplay, but they took it, they ran with it, and here we are all these years later. Now PlayStation has it. Xbox for at its time 20 years ago was people kind of looked at Microsoft sideways for having an Ethernet port in the back of the original Xbox. And there was a reason why they did that, because they had this vision of Xbox Live. They felt like Ethernet was having Ethernet port could only deliver the kind of experience that they wanted gamers to have. And look, here we are today. We all have broadband internet 20 something years later. So, but I've always, again, even despite some of my criticisms of Microsoft with the Xbox in particular, I've always thought that they've done or have recently done a good job, really turning what I call is turning the ship around from last console generation. And to me, they've distinguished themselves in a way, or they position themselves in a way where I think that while there's a lot of similarities with them and PlayStation, there's some big things that kind of distinguish them from PlayStation 2, and that is how far they are in terms of cloud gaming, and then obviously Game Pass, with the day and date stuff and the big catalog of content, and just allowing people to access gaming in different ways, which Sony's kind of getting there, but Microsoft's obviously a little bit more mature in that regard.
Right. Now let me make you mad, El Ricardo. Now, that all being said, the only thing left that I want from Microsoft and Xbox is we've delivered unto your hands 23 studios, right? Soon to potentially be 30, right? Now, just engineer a production pipeline that is commensurate with the resources that you have.
Exactly.
Right? Start providing output. And I don't even necessarily mean, right, don't measure them by, God of War and yada. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, look, you got 23 studios. I want to start seeing commensurate output with those resources, right? Plus these other ones that you're about to get in your hands, right? Their own stated strategy was one AAA game per quarter, first party, going into Game Pass. I get it. Given where they are now, not saying that I'm satisfied by where they are now, but given where they are now, right? I've calculated how long it's going to take them to get to where they should be, right? And with 30 studios, with 23 studios, right, it's capable to hit that battle rhythm. And with 30 studios, you're capable to hit that battle rhythm with some degree of redundancy, which I absolutely think that you have to have, right? Because there are going to be misses. And so, a lot of people run a lot of analogies and a lot of comparisons, right? In many ways, a lot of what Microsoft is putting together is very analogous to what Disney Plus put together for the Marvel movies, right? Mm-hmm. Those MCU movies, they take, as much as I have applauded Feige for what he did in contractually putting the actors together and keeping them all together for the duration of the Infinity War saga, we're seeing a lot more information now where the machine required to make the MCU go is huge, right? And it's also very unforgiving. So if you're a visual effects studio who provides visual effects, right, in After Effects and editing for those MCU movies, those people aren't happy when they see D23 and they see all the crap coming down the pike, right? And I think you're going to wind up potentially seeing like a lot of those studios kind of pull an EVGA where they say, "Yep, I'm out," right? And because they get put under contracts, they get their feet held to the fire about delivery because they can't miss dates, right? Because those movies are coming out, right? And I think it's a lot more. It's a lot more heavy-handed in the movie industry for maintaining schedule. Mm-hmm. So, but again, that's just to draw an analogy and an analog, right? To kind of see, because a lot of people say, well, I don't understand why they're putting so many studios together. I'm like, look, because is like look mathematically at the amount of time that it takes to put out a game, at schedule slips, at other things that impact, at the perishability of technology, right? That's another thing. Like, look, when you start on an engine, right, you really need to get a game out, right, within a certain period of time relative to the technology you're using, right? Are the technologies going to shift? How many games have you ever played where the first couple levels don't look that great, right? And then all of a sudden you hit like level 3 or 4 and you see an uptick in graphical fidelity, right? Not because they shifted technologies, but just because, you know, some things came along in that technology, in that technical framework that allowed them, right, to do better, or maybe they learn more. But they don't necessarily get time to loop back into the production cycle to, right, shore up those first 2 levels. So, you know, I think, again, you know, what Microsoft is trying to put together is that type of production pipeline and that type of release train, where there is a primary release cadence, and some redundancies and shifts that they can, you know, that they can do and be flexible within the pipeline to kind of plug things up. I think if they put this thing together the way it should be put together, my belief is that you will get games that will be done and will be held back, right? And will be held in reserve, right? Will be extra rounds in the magazine, right? To fire when somebody misses schedule. But I just don't know if that's what they're going to actually achieve. But hey, did we talk about the GTA 6 leak already? Did I miss that?
No, I was getting ready to talk about that. Let me pull up the article right now. Give me a sec here. Oh crap. Hold on a sec here. Yeah, because there's some developments here with this. Here we go. Just pull up an article here. All right. So GTA leaked. Was it yesterday? Right? Oh no, again, I was off. I thought
it was like wee hours of the morning, Sunday morning, Saturday night.
Yeah. So the you know what's again? We talk about like the hyperbolic, you know, reactions. Some of the reactions over that leak were just crazy. People saying this game looks like crap. I'm not buying it. This is why we shouldn't support this. Like what? This game's not even done yet.
Hey, just real quick, Shadow Spade. I was grokking what you were selling a little while ago, but now you're talking about this Kid Smooth rap that he made. And I'm about to have to ask you to leave.
Oh my God. Yeah. So you know, again, here we are with some of the crazy takes people have on the Twitters, and I saw this in some gaming forums, and people are like, "Oh my God, this game looks terrible. This is, you know, these devs, they're greedy. You know, this is." I said, "Come on, guys! Like this is a leaked fleet footage of a game of development. It's not even done yet. Judge it when it's done. Judge it when it's done. Play the game and judge it when it's done."
For a game that hasn't even had a release date announced.
Yeah, it doesn't even have a release date.
Even a release window.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and actually, Rockstar's been taking down videos of people on YouTube and taking down their videos for YouTubers who were showing the gameplay footage. So we're definitely not doing that here on BRAP because we don't want the video taken down. But there's some folks that did that. They had their videos removed. So the Bonnie and Clyde thing, that's basically confirmed. We know that's a thing now. That was a rumor going around that you're going to have these protagonists, a male, female. And even again, we have the misogynists out there in the gaming community talking about the female, which that's another conversation. So Rockstar, here we go. Rockstar recently, here's their comment on Twitter. Let me pull that up here real quick. Let me make sure everyone can see that because hold on a sec here. I'm gonna have to like zoom this to 200%, man.
No, you don't, because they don't need to read that. But I'll let you go ahead and go through it. Yeah. But I have some problems with this messaging.
All right, so a message from Rockstar Games. We recently suffered a network intrusion, and by the way, it is rumored that a 60-year-old is the one that hacked Rockstar, and that this individual is part of a group of individuals that do this kind of stuff. But yeah, that's the rumor right now. That 16-year-old actually hacked Rockstar and got the footage. All right. Recently suffered a network intrusion in which an unauthorized third party illegally accessed and downloaded confidential information from our system, including early development footage for the next Grand Theft Auto. At this time, we do not anticipate any disruption to our live game services, nor any long-term effect on the development of our ongoing projects. We're extremely disappointed to have any details of our next game shared with you all in this way. Our work On the next Grand Theft Auto game, we'll continue as planned, and we remained as committed as ever to delivering an experience to you, our players, that truly exceeds our expectations. We will update everyone again soon, and of course, we'll properly introduce you to this next game when it's ready. We want to thank everyone for their ongoing support through the situation, Rockstar Games team. So that was Rockstar's commentary on this. Go ahead, Logic.
So my problem with this messaging is that it is actually good that you read it a second time, because I didn't catch that the disruption comment was about their live service games. So that's good. But then the part about, it won't cause any disruption to our long-term projects. Of course it doesn't cause any noticeable disruption or any disruption that you would have to publicly convey, because you haven't given a release date, right, for Grand Theft Auto 6. And so whatever rework that you're going to have to do, whatever pauses that you're going to have to take, obviously don't impact a schedule that you never committed to. So it's just a little bit of, it felt like it was a little bit of PR obfuscation that I felt was, for somebody kind of reading the surface level of that, I'm sure it'll take fine. But for, people who are looking for something a little more, I don't know, sophisticated, it sounded like quite honestly, it sounded like a Sony messaging thing of it's a half message and a partial truth that doesn't reveal all of the necessary detail.
Oh, you just made a negative commentary about Sony. Imagine that.
I made negative comments about Sony literally all the time.
I know. You've been very adamant about how bad their messaging has been this console generation. And I actually don't disagree with you. The messaging has gotten a little bit better, but yeah, I don't disagree with you that their messaging has not been on point this generation.
Well, my feeling is their messaging has gotten more consistent. I don't know that it's gotten any more transparent or open, but at least after beating me over the head with it for 2 years straight, I absolutely understand that Sony customers are expected to pay for their content, and it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. but again, it's the evil, I much prefer, at a certain point, I prefer you just being honest and straight up with me, right, to me kind of never knowing where the next punch is going to come from.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so there's that story going around now that a 16-year-old who's apparently a leader, and I'm not going to name the name of this ransomware hacker group that this individual apparently is the leader of, but the FBI apparently, to the reports, is investigating this hack, and they believe this individual might be behind the hack of Uber that took place. I think it was last month, if I'm not mistaken. So that's kind of that's the latest update with the GTA 6 hack in the league. So I did watch the footage. Again, I didn't really, it looks like Grand Theft Auto, but I wasn't one of those individuals out there saying, oh my God, this game looks like crap. I actually was like, okay, cool. We all knew it was in development, but I was like, okay, cool. Gameplay footage, confirmation on the Bonnie and Clyde thing, and can't wait to see more. And that was pretty much it. That was my take. So, but it's I guess from let me ask you something, Hamp. I mean, I can't, this almost seems like too easy, right? For them to hack Rockstar. Like, is it easy, or are these people just really good at what they're doing? What are these people that are hacking just really good at that? And we're just able to, because I can't imagine this is easy to do, right?
It's not easy, but unethical hackers are, they're not a talentless, right, pool of people. But by the same token, I will say it's how do I want to put this? It's not easy, but things can be overlooked, and organizations can become overconfident. One of the things that still kind of flabbergasts me is, we learned from the Sony Motion Pictures compromise, and I mean, we're talking about 2011, right? Not 2011. The hack that came later, right, for Sony Motion Pictures. We learned that one of the better security postures to take is to always assume that the bad guys are going to get in. Assume that they've been there for a while. What it becomes more difficult for them to obfuscate and to hide is the exfiltration of data. And And that's what is kind of weird to me, is that there wasn't continuous monitoring around data going out, and validation that data exfiltration was actually valid. The easiest way for me is probably to read this, which I think for a lot of people is going to be boring, but it'll be listening to me better than listening to me ramble along in disorganization. So can I just kind of read out what I tweeted about this earlier today?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
All right. So tons of dismissiveness over the GTA 6 leak because it was only 10,000 lines of code. The only thing impacted here is not the proprietary IP of the code itself. Source code exfiltrated a secure enclave. As far as we know, it wasn't detected. It certainly wasn't prevented. The only reason we know is because the guy leaked it. Again, as far as we know. No alarm went off in the Batcave to tell Rockstar it had already happened. It calls into question intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, exfiltration detection systems, and how remote comms were or were not secured, what continuous monitoring was in place, etc. We don't know a reason why it couldn't have been 10 million lines of code, other than the guy decided to pop the reveal now rather than harvest more and wait. Maybe he thought people were onto him. Maybe his accesses only gave him privileges and entitlements to that much code in the repo. Every CISO at a major development corporation is going to break stride and have everyone ensure this can't happen to them. It's going to have a cost impact. It's going to cause a review of remote work policies. It will impact hiring, how much work is outsourced, etc., around the industry, not just Rockstar. And that's from the GTA 6 leak. The GTA 5 leak could compound that effect, which is actually more source code that's out in the wild.
Is it the source code they're trying to sell or something like that? Like they're trying to ransom that? Or
supposedly. I broke stride with that story a little bit because I'm like, well, how do you blackmail somebody when we know it's you? Right. Yeah, right. And then I finished off with the 5 leak could compound that effect. Is it a reason to move everyone into the bomb shelters? Not sure. I don't know if it's, what I'll add to that is I don't know if it's that severe. However, what I said was, is it a reason to dismiss it and act like it's a mundane event? I'd probably pump the brakes on that arrogance, right? So a lot of people, there was some commentary that Agent Deli was involved in.
I saw that, yeah,
over this weekend, and the guy really kind of teed off on him in a manner which I think is radically inappropriate, right? If technical professionals can't maintain good behavior in how they converse with each other, then it's hard for us to expect a higher standard of behavior from the gaming community. But he blasted Deli, that Deli's take was way overblown.
He said he was accusing Deli of being hyperbolic or something. And,
yeah,
and actually kind of cherry picked, I thought, a piece out of what Deli was saying.
Right.
Seemed to focus on that 10,000 lines of code. But there's more to what Deli was saying. But go ahead.
Right. And I'm a security professional and a software developer, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, I'm not worried. Like, the volume of code, right, is not the critical thing here. The critical thing is that data exfiltrated the place in the first place and we didn't catch it. Right. So again, like I said originally, tell me why it wasn't 10 million lines of code or 100 million lines of code. Because this is what happened with the Sony Motion Pictures leak, right? People were inside that network for months, right, and slowly exfiltrated large amounts of data, large amounts of emails, whole scripts, right, for movies that were in production pipeline, right? So, again, that's the thing that I would be concerned about. And like I said, if I were a CISO at a major dev corp, right, if I'm the CEO or CFO, right, I come in first thing Monday morning, I come in and I'm like, dude, go tell me this can't happen to us, right? And come to me and brief me and walk it to the nines. And if I'm the CISO, I'm out, beating everybody up, making sure that all those things get close. And then when you do that type of evaluation, when you do that type of audit, and you determine, right, that there are holes, that there are risks, it's going to cause you to go out and spend more money, right, on software, on additional tools.
For the people that don't know what CISO is Chief Information Security Officer.
Yes.
I'm sure people are going to be like, what's CISO? So.
Yeah, and I mean, you have multiple people in organizations. So you may have a CISO, you may have an ISO, you may have an information system security officer, and information system security engineers, and yada yada yada. So a lot of these places. So just to explain a little more, I think a lot of these places will run something called a CSOC, depending on kind of what your organization is. So a Center for Security or a Security Operations Center, Cybersecurity Operations Center. And so you may have a space that's manned, right, that's staffed, 24/7 in order to continuously monitor the system and look at what's happening in terms of bad actors who are probing the system. in certain commercial environments. The other thing that you may have in place,
DLP, baby. Sorry, go ahead.
when you talk about like an organization the size of Rockstar, 2K Take-Two, right? Depending on how their information systems are set up, it is not unusual for there to be a network where, accounting and finance and contracts and, HR, talent acquisition, right? A network where people like that work. And then a more secured, more locked down network that is logically separated from that network, right? Where the developers work, right? So you don't have an instance where, somebody in, I'm going to pick on BRAP, somebody in talent acquisition, right, can give somebody the keys to the same network where people are developing code, right? And so, this may be a matter of the manner in which the system was compromised was that the person came in through the front door of the corporation, but then was able to find their way to, the interior door right into the dev environment. Sometimes that's, I don't want to necessarily say easier, but sometimes there's different routes that you can take if those environments are out in the cloud. But everybody's running around waving this zero trust flag right now, which I think is a little bit of overblown marketing hype. But there are, just in terms of the branding, right? Zero trust has existed for a very long time. But I think, BRAP, I don't remember if I said it to you, but I've definitely said it to other people. I was like, look, if you live in any household with any family members who don't have the same mind about security as you do, then you've lived in a zero trust environment for a very long time, right? I do not have, right, my family's devices, my family's computers.
My wife got upset because I did two-step authentication on our Xfinity account. She's like, I hate that. I'm like, look,
Right.
I have it for a reason.
Right. Right.
I don't want somebody to hack our account.
Right. Right.
There's a reason why I have a passcode on our network. Wireless network.
Right. So my point is right, like, different organizations are at different points in that maturity model, right, into the terms of implementing, not just accepting that because somebody's on a device that has been logically connected to a network or any segment of your network that they are trustable, right? But to make everybody further confirm their irreputable identity, right, at every stage through every door that they cut through. So not everybody has implemented that. Not everybody has implemented that as robustly. Clearly, in this case, people were able to exfiltrate data out of their network. Makes you question kind of if Splunk is implemented and how and who's monitoring it and doing those audits. So it just brings up a lot of questions that lots of people are gonna go off and try and find answers to.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, kind of like what you find out internally, like what failed Rockstar in this case, like what systems they had in place that just failed. You obviously got to imagine they're going to revamp, their what's it called, their security features. And you mentioned Splunk. For those who don't know, Splunk is a technology platform, if I'm not mistaken. Hamp, is that right? Cybersecurity.
I think I would just think of it more as a tool, but it's a tool that's basically utilized within the enterprise to people build pipelines, right, where they constantly ship off logs and lots of data to Splunk, where Splunk is able to go out and monitor network traffic and communications. And then there are other tools that you can integrate with Splunk.
I'm actually looking for somebody with Splunk experience right now for a DLP role that I'm working on. So
nice.
Yeah. So.
And then you can integrate Splunk, right, with other systems to render things like intrusion detection, data exfiltration, and things of that nature. So enterprise dashboarding, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
got to the wrong line of business, by the way. I'm starting to realize this Hamp, because I'm starting to work on some of these like cyber roles. It's like I think I missed my calling in life, man. No, it just, all jokes. I just find it very fascinating, especially with some of these roles that I'm working on now. So it's gonna be interesting to see the impact of this. I'm more interested in the impact of it from on Rockstar and how they address what happened. We may never know. They may never tell us what they did to ensure that this doesn't happen again. But it's interesting. But again, it's not the first time that this has happened in the entertainment business. As you mentioned, so it's happened to Sony as well. So But yeah, like I said, apparently the FBI is investigating this individual. They think he could be part of the Uber hack that happened last month. So we'll see. We'll keep everyone posted as this story develops. So I feel like we just did like the like 5 o'clock news hour. Like after work. Like the drive home.
Yeah.
So,
like you said, it's just with the way they kind of put out that press release, it's just going to be hard to tell. I mean, my basic assumption was, not entirely unlike COVID, right? This is going to create challenges in interoperation and collaboration amongst teams. Additional constraints and restrictions are going to be set up.
Yep.
Remote work policies, I would think would not be as lax. And I would definitely expect, from my own perspective, if it were me, I would definitely lock things down where there was a certain requirement, right, to be on-prem. When certain things were done, there would be certain things that would now require two-person controls, two-person integrity on certain things.
Hamp, that's like the 20th time I heard that word today. On-prem, because one of the roles I'm recruiting for has to do with moving legacy platform to Azure. And I interviewed a couple candidates there, like, oh yeah, on-prem to Azure. I'm like, oh, and then you just said that. I'm like, it's like the 30th time I've heard that word. Thank you.
Sorry. But those would be some of the measures that I would take, which is going to hamper schedule and productivity and velocity. So we'll just see how it goes. I guess the only measure we'll have is, how much longer do people need to continue plumbing the drain of GTA 5 before they finally get it replaced. What are we on, like our 4th generation of gamer that has grown up on Grand Theft Auto 5?
I mean, it released on the Xbox 360. That's where I bought it, and then I got it on the Xbox One. So yeah, I mean, 2013 is when it released. Oh, the 360, right before the launch of the new consoles.
Yeah.
Wow. And then they released it a year later on the new consoles. The what is it, Gen 8? We're Gen 9 right now, right? So
we're Gen 9 now.
Yeah, so anyhow. Well, look, I do need to wrap up this rant. This actually went longer than I initially anticipated, which is fine. It's okay. Good conversation. But no, I'm not rich, by the way. Someone says BRAP is rich. He has 3 PS5s. No, I have 2 PS5s. And I'm not rich, but T-Rock says, Halo entanglements. Thank you, T-Rock. Yes, I've been enjoying the yappening. It's a lot of fun. I might fire up Halo tonight. I have to do that tonight. So, but Logic Man, hey, or Hamp, hey man, always a pleasure, man. Thank you for joining me. And it was kind of like the 11th hour when I reached out to you. It was like, hey, can you do a BRAP rant? So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. I put the orange low gas light on for you, trying to get back.
Come on, baby, don't fail me now.
Yeah, I was like, do I take the expressway?
Right.
Where I can't get off? Do I risk it?
Oh, that's too funny, man. I appreciate it, man. And big shout out to everyone in the live chat as well. Thank you all for coming by, hanging out with us. Us PlayStation apologists. That's a joke, by the way. Someone's going to take that literally too. Be like, see, I told you. But no, seriously, thank you everyone for hanging out with us. Appreciate it. Hey, we'll be back. In about I feel like I can't even talk. We'll be back on Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time for our regularly scheduled BRAP.
In 48 hours. Let's hope that no more scandals break between now and then.
Oh man, yeah. Let's hope not, because if something huge drops like tomorrow, I'll probably do another BRAP rant. But anyhow, we'll be back on Wednesday though at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our regularly scheduled BRAP. So we'll see you then. Give me a follow, BRAP_podcast on the Twitters. And if you're new to the show, hit the subscribe button and bell notifications so you're alerted when we go live. Thank you over again for hanging out with us. Really appreciate it. And to Hamp for rushing home on an empty tank to join us today on BRAP. So thank you again, Hamp. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. I will always make it when I can.
All right, man. No doubt. So all right, everyone, we'll catch you all on Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We're out.